The colony that refused to dye the morning sky over New Terra blazed orange and purple as twin suns rose above the crystalline mountains. For 15 years, this had been home to 50,000 humans who had traveled across the void to build something beautiful on the distant world of Kepler 442b. Dr. Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of the colony's central hub, watching children play in the hydroponic gardens below. Their laughter echoed through the biodome, a sound that had become as precious as oxygen itself. Sarah pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, feeling the slight vibration that always reminded her they were living inside a protective bubble on an alien world. At 42, she had spent half her life here, watching New Terra grow from a handful of prefab shelters into a thriving community. As colony administrator, she had overseen the construction of schools, hospitals, research facilities, and the vast agricultural domes that fed their people. Every structure, every innovation, every solution had come from human hands and human minds working together. The comm unit on her wrist buzzed urgently. Sarah tapped it, and the voice of Marcus Thompson, head of colony security, crackled through. The speaker. His tone was grim, professional, but she could hear the underlying tension that came from 20 years of military service. Sarah, we need you in the command center. Now. She took one last look at the children playing below, memorizing their faces, their joy, their innocence. Something in Marcus's voice told her that innocence was about to end. The command center hummed with activity when Sarah arrived. Marcus stood before a large holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by streams of incoming data. At 55, he had served in 3 colonial conflicts before retiring to New Terra with his wife and daughter. His gray hair was cut military short, and his stance remained that of a soldier even after 5 years of peace. Beside him, 26-year-old Jake Rivera hunched over a console, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The young engineer had been born on New Terra, part of the first generation to call this world home. His dark eyes reflected the data streams as he processed information at a speed that amazed his elders. Where others saw chaos, Jake saw patterns. Where others saw problems, he found solutions. What's the situation? Sarah asked, stepping up to the display. Marcus gestured to the hologram, which showed their star system with dozens of red markers approaching from the outer rim. Long-range sensors picked them up an hour ago. Zephyrian Empire fleet moving in formation toward our position. Sarah's breath caught. The Zephyrians were known throughout this sector of the galaxy as conquerors. They absorbed or destroyed every civilization they encountered, driven by a philosophy that saw other species as either useful servants or obstacles to be eliminated. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. Their ships could devastate planets, and their ground forces had never been defeated. How many ships? She asked. Jake looked up from his console, his young face pale but determined. 47 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. They're not hiding their approach, Sarah. They want us to see them coming. A new signal appeared on the display, and Jake quickly isolated it. A holographic image materialized in the center of the room, showing a Zephyrian commander. The alien stood 8 feet tall, its body covered in overlapping scales that shifted from deep blue to purple. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its elongated skull focused on them with predatory intelligence. When it spoke, its voice was a harmonious blend of tones that somehow made its words more threatening. Humans of New Terra Colony, the commander began, its mandibles clicking as it formed the words. I am War Prime Vexstar of the Zephyrian 5th Fleet. Your species expansion into this sector has been noted and evaluated. By the decree of the Eternal Empire, your presence here is unauthorized and will be corrected. Sarah stepped forward, her training as a diplomat taking over despite her fear. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, administrator of New Terra Colony. We are a peaceful settlement operating under the Colonial Expansion Treaty of 2387. We have no quarrel. With the Zephyrian Empire, the alien's 4 eyes seem to focus on her individually. Your treaties mean nothing beyond your species' limited borders. You have 72 hours to evacuate this world. Any humans remaining after that time will be eliminated as trespassers. Any resistance will result in the immediate destruction of your colony. This is not negotiation, human. This is inevitability. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in heavy silence. Sarah felt the weight of 50,000 lives pressing down on her shoulders. These weren't just colonists under her care. They were friends, families, entire generations who had never known any home but New Terra. Marcus broke the silence first. Evacuation is impossible. Our transport ships can carry maybe 5,000 people, and that's pushing life support to the limit. Even if we had more ships, the nearest human settlement is 8 months away. Jake was already working at his console, data streaming across multiple screens. I'm checking our defense capabilities. We have the mining charges from the excavation sites, some industrial equipment that could be modified. And the security force has about 300 personnel with small arms. Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity of it. 300 security officers against the Zephyrian fleet. Jake, they could glass this planet from orbit without even landing. But Jake's expression was intense, focused. Maybe, but they didn't threaten. To glass it, Sarah. They said they'd eliminate any humans remaining and destroy the colony. That suggests they want the planet intact, which means they have to come down here to remove us. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding the implications. The boy's right. If they wanted us dead from space, we'd already be dead. They need the planet for something, which means ground operations. Sarah looked around the command center at the faces of her people. In Marcus, she saw the calculating mind of a career soldier already planning defensive positions. In Jake, she saw the innovative spirit that had helped build their colony from nothing. Around the room, other colonists had gathered, technicians and farmers, teachers and doctors, all waiting for her decision. You're talking about fighting? Them, she said quietly. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered hundreds of worlds. Their military technology is centuries beyond ours. Jake stood up from his console, his young face determined. Sarah, I was born here. This is my home, not some distant memory from Earth. My parents came here to build something better, something that couldn't be taken away by politics or war. If we abandon everything we've built, then we're not the humans who crossed the void to make a new world. We're just refugees. Around the room, heads nodded in agreement. These people had already made the ultimate journey, leaving everything they knew to build something new. They understood sacrifice, they understood determination, and they understood that some things were worth fighting for. Marcus stepped forward. I won't lie to you, Sarah. Our chances aren't good. But I've seen what humans can do when they're backed into a corner. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy, not the smartest, not the most advanced. But we're stubborn and we adapt and we never quit fighting as long as there's breath in our bodies. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking of the children in the gardens, the families who had trusted her to keep them safe. The generations yet to be born who deserved the chance to call New Terra home. When she opened them again, her decision was made. Send a response to the Zephyrian commander, she said, her voice steady and clear. Tell him that New Terra Colony respectfully declines his generous offer to abandon our home. Tell him that. If he wants this world, he'll have to take it from us. The next 48 hours transformed New Terra from a peaceful colony into a fortress. The transformation was remarkable not because of advanced technology or military expertise, but because of human ingenuity and determination. Mining excavators became mobile weapons platforms, their drilling arms modified to fire explosive charges. Industrial fabricators worked around the clock to produce improvised armor and weapons from colony materials. Jake led a team of engineers in weaponizing everything they could find. Agricultural drones were reprogrammed as reconnaissance units. The colony's geothermal power systems were rigged to overload on command, creating devastating explosions. Even the children contributed, helping to evacuate non-combatants to reinforced shelters deep underground. Marcus organized the defense with military precision. Turning farmers into soldiers and teachers into tacticians, he established overlapping fields of fire using their limited weapons, created choke points in the colony's corridors, and set up communication networks that could function even under bombardment. But it was Jake who made the discovery that would change everything. While studying the planet's geological surveys, he noticed something that had been overlooked during the initial colonization. New Terra's crust contained massive deposits of a rare mineral that generated powerful electromagnetic fields under specific conditions. Sarah, look at this, Jake called excitedly from his workstation. The mineral deposits aren't random. They form a natural network beneath the colony. If we can find a way to activate them, what would that do? Sarah asked. Studying the complex patterns on his screen, Jake's eyes lit up with possibility. Electromagnetic pulse. Not enough to damage our hardened systems, but Zephyrian technology relies heavily on quantum processing matrices. A properly timed EMP burst could disable their equipment temporarily. Marcus leaned over Jake's shoulder, studying the data. How temporarily? Maybe minutes, maybe hours? It depends on their shielding and redundancy systems, but it might give us a chance. As the deadline approached, the colonists gathered in the central plaza. 50,000 people, from infants to elders, all facing an uncertain future. Sarah stood before them, looking out at faces she had known for years, people who had become her family. In 6 hours, the Zephyrians will arrive, she said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. They expect us to surrender or die. They see U.S. as obstacles to be removed, problems to be solved. But they don't understand what it means to be human. She paused, gathering her thoughts and her courage. We didn't come to New Terra because it was easy. We came because it was necessary. Our ancestors left Earth not to escape humanity, but to expand it, to prove that the human spirit could thrive anywhere, could build anything, could overcome any challenge. Today, we proved them right. The crowd began to stir, voices rising in agreement. They have better ship, better weapons, better technology, but they don't have what we have. They don't have the determination of parents protecting their children. They don't have the ingenuity of minds that see solutions where others see only problems. They don't have the courage of people who have already traveled across the void to build something beautiful. Sarah's voice grew stronger, more confident. So let them come. Let them see what humans do when they're protecting their home. Let them learn that some things can't be conquered, only earned. And let them discover that when humans have nothing left to lose, they become the most dangerous force in the galaxy. The cheer that erupted from the crowd echoed through the biodomes and across the crystalline mountains of New Terra. It was the sound of a species that refused to surrender. Refused to run, refused to let fear determine their fate. As the Zephyrian fleet entered orbit and began their descent toward the colony. They carried with them the assumption that this would be another easy conquest. They had superior numbers, superior technology, and centuries of military success. What they didn't carry was an understanding of what they were about to face. The humans of New Terra weren't just defending a colony. They were defending the idea that any species, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, had the right to make its mark on the universe. They were defending the principle that home wasn't just a place, but a choice, a commitment, a promise made to future generations. As the first Zephyrian landing craft breached the atmosphere, their sensors began picking up unusual electromagnetic readings from the planet's surface. The readings were unlike anything in their databases. Patterns that seemed almost organic in their complexity. In the colony's command center, Jake watched the incoming ships on his monitors while making final adjustments to the electromagnetic pulse system. His fingers moved with steady precision despite the enormity of what he was attempting. Around him, colonists prepared for the fight of their lives. Contact in 30 minutes, Marcus reported from his position. All defensive teams are in position. Sarah nodded, then activated the colony-wide communication system one final time. This is Administrator Cheen to all colonists. Whatever happens in the next few hours, remember that we stand together. We are not just fighting for New Terra. We are fighting for the right of humanity to reach for the stars and make them our own. She paused, looking around at the faces of people who had become her family. Today, We show the galaxy what humans are capable of when they refuse to surrender. Outside, the Zephyrian ships began their final approach, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no way of knowing that they were about to encounter something that could be measured in firepower or technology. They were about to face the indomitable human spirit and discover that some forces in the universe couldn't be conquered. Asterisk. Thunder from the void. The first Zephyrian assault craft touched down in the fields outside New Terra colony, like metallic teardrops falling from a burning sky. Each ship was the size of a city block, its hull gleaming with energy shields that deflected the colonists' initial weapons fire. From their opened hatches emerged the Zephyrian ground forces, tall figures in powered armor that moved with fluid precision across the terrain. Warprime. Vexstar stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the tactical display with 4 eyes that saw victory as inevitable. His scales rippled with satisfaction as his forces deployed around the human settlement. In 600 years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that chose hopeless resistance over rational surrender. Status report, he commanded, his harmonious voice carrying absolute authority. Ground forces have established a perimeter, reported his tactical officer. The humans have fortified their position using industrial equipment. Primitive, but showing unexpected coordination. Vexstar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Humans. They cling to hope even when facing extinction. Begin the assault. I want this concluded within the hour. On the surface, Marcus Thompson crouched behind a barricade made from mining equipment, his weathered hands steady on a projectile rifle. Around him, colonists who had been farmers and teachers just days ago now fought with the desperate determination of people protecting their children. The Zephyrian forces advanced with overwhelming firepower, their energy weapons carving through makeshift defenses. Fall back to secondary positions, Marcus commanded through his unit. Execute planned retreat pattern Alpha. The colonists moved with surprising coordination, years of emergency drills paying off as they conducted a fighting withdrawal toward the colony's central structures. But Marcus knew they were only buying time. Against Zephyrian technology, human courage could only accomplish so much. In the underground command center. Jake Rivera worked frantically at his console, sweat beading on his forehead as he made final calibrations to the electromagnetic pulse system. The mineral deposits beneath New Terra pulsed with growing energy, their natural electromagnetic properties amplified by modifications Jake had made to the colony's power grid. Jake, whatever you're planning, do it now, Sarah's voice crackled. Through the CUM system. They're breaking through our outer defenses. Jake's fingers flew across the interface, bringing online a system that existed nowhere in human or Zephyrian databases. For 15 years, New Terra's colonists had unknowingly built their home above one of the galaxy's most powerful natural electromagnetic generators. Now, that accident of geology would become their salvation. Initiating pulse in 3.2. 1. Double quotes, the effect was instantaneous and devastating. Every piece of Zephyrian technology within 50 kilometers simply stopped working. Their weapons fell silent, their armor powered down, their vehicles crashed to the ground as their quantum processors overloaded. In the space of a heartbeat, the most advanced military force in the sector was reduced to confused soldiers standing in powerless metal suits. Warprime Vexstar felt his flagship shudder as systems failed throughout the vessel. Emergency lighting flickered on as the main power grid went dark. Around him, his crew worked desperately to restore basic functions while he stared at blank tactical displays. Report, he roared, his harmonious voice cracking with rage. Total system failure across the fleet, his tactical officer replied, panic creeping into its voice. Quantum matrices are completely disrupted. Backup systems are non-responsive. We're operating on emergency power only. For the first time in 6 centuries, Vexstar felt uncertainty. No species in the Galactic database possessed technology capable of generating such a precise electromagnetic pulse. The humans were supposed to be primitives, barely capable. Interstellar travel. This level of sophistication suggested they had been dramatically underestimated. On the surface, the colonists seized their moment. Marcus led the counterattack personally, charging across the fields toward the disabled Zephyrian positions. The aliens, suddenly stripped of their technological advantages, found themselves facing humans who fought with a ferocity that defied all their tactical models. Sarah Chen, despite her role as administrator, found herself running alongside Marcus, carrying an improvised weapon and shouting encouragement to colonists who had become warriors. The transformation was remarkable. Farmers who had spent their lives nurturing crops now showed the same determination in battle. Teachers who had educated children now coordinated tactical movements with precision that impressed even Marcus. But it was Jake Rivera who provided the masterstroke. While the colonists pressed their attack, he worked to extend the electromagnetic pulse effect. Using the colony's communication array, he transmitted the resonance frequency to every human settlement within range, creating a growing field. Electromagnetic disruption that spread across the planet like ripples on a pond. The young engineer's voice came through every comm unit in the colony. The pulse effect is expanding. I can maintain it for maybe 6 hours before the power grid. Overloads, whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Marcus understood immediately. 6 hours to neutralize 47 Zephyrian ships and their crews. It was impossible by any reasonable measure, but humans had never been particularly concerned with reasonable measures. He activated the colony-wide communication system. All units, this is Thompson. We have a 6-hour window where their technology is down. I want every able-bodied colonist armed and moving. We're not just defending anymore. We're taking this fight to them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Colonists emerged from every shelter, every hiding place, every defensive position. They carried mining equipment, industrial tools, improvised weapons, and most importantly, they carried the unshakable determination of people who had found their line in the sand. High above the planet, something else was happening that would change the course of the battle entirely. A single ship, sleek and predatory, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. It was smaller than the Zephyrian dreadnoughts, but it moved with purpose and grace that suggested advanced technology and expert handling. The ship's name was Indomitable, and it carried a crew that had already made the decision to sacrifice everything for the people of New Terra. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the prototype vessel, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet in orbit around the colony world. At 48, Elena had served 30 years in the United Earth Fleet, rising through the ranks to command some of humanity's most advanced warships. She had been born on Luna, raised in the asteroid mining colonies, and trained in the finest military academies Earth had to offer. More importantly, she understood what it meant to be human in a galaxy that often seemed hostile to human ambitions. Behind her stood her crew, 67 volunteers who had made the same choice she had. They had abandoned their posts, stolen the most advanced ship in the human fleet, and traveled across hostile space to reach New Terra. They had done it knowing they would be court-martialed if they survived, knowing they were outnumbered 47-1, knowing they had no hope of victory by any conventional measure. They had done it because they were human, and humans didn't abandon their own. Status report, Helena commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never learned to surrender. Lieutenant Commander David Park, her tactical officer, looked up from his console. Zephyrian fleet is in orbit but showing signs of system failures. I'm reading massive electromagnetic interference from the planet's surface. Whatever the colonists are doing down there, it's disrupting Zephyrian technology. Alina smiled grimly. She had studied the personnel files for New Terra Colony during the 8-week journey to reach them. She knew about Dr. Sarah Chun's diplomatic training, Marcus Thompson's military experience, and most importantly, she knew about Jake Rivera's reputation as an engineer who saw possibilities where others saw limitations. Open a channel to the colony, she ordered. Moments later, Sarah Chen's voice crackled through the static. This is Dr. Chen, administrator of New Terra Colony. Who is this? Dr. Chen, This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UEF vessel Indomitable. We're here to even the odds. The silence on the channel lasted several seconds before Sarah's voice returned, thick with emotion. Captain, there are 47 Zephyrian ships in orbit. You're one ship. Elena's smile widened. Ma'am, we're not just one ship. We're a human ship. There's a difference. What followed was 30 minutes of the most intense space combat in recorded history. The Indomitable, despite being outnumbered, possessed several advantages that Elena and her crew exploited with ruthless efficiency. First, they had studied Zephyrian tactics for decades. While the Zephyrians had never faced human military technology at its most advanced level. Second, the electromagnetic pulse from the planet's surface continued to disrupt Zephyrian systems, forcing them to operate at reduced efficiency. Most importantly, they had something the Zephyrians didn't understand: the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Elena maneuvered the Indomitable through the enemy fleet like a predator among prey, using hit-and-run tactics that maximized their technological advantages while minimizing exposure to enemy fire. Her crew worked with precision born of years of training and strengthened by the knowledge that 50,000 colonists were counting on them. Lieutenant Commander Park coordinated weapons fire with surgical precision. Targeting their command ships first, he reported. If we can disrupt their coordination, the rest of the fleet will be easier to handle. Chief Engineer Maria Santos pushed the ship's systems beyond their design limits, coaxing performance from the engines that should have been impossible. Captain, I can give you 20% more power, but we're already running hot. One more push like this, and we'll burn out the entire propulsion system. Elena didn't hesitate. Do it. We didn't come this far to worry about warranty coverage. On the planet's surface, the colonists could see the battle raging overhead, bright flashes of light marking each exchange of fire. Jake Rivera worked to extend the electromagnetic pulse effect, knowing that every minute he could maintain it gave the Indomitable a better chance of survival. Marcus Thompson led ground forces in a coordinated assault on the disabled Zephyrian positions. The aliens, stripped of their technological advantages, found themselves facing humans who fought with a combination of tactical skill and desperate courage that defied their understanding of warfare. The battle raged for hours, with neither side giving ground easily, but gradually the humans began to gain the advantage. The Indomitable, despite taking heavy damage, managed to destroy or disable most of the Zephyrian fleet. On the surface, the colonists systematically captured Zephyrian positions, turning the aliens' own weapons against them once Jake figured out how to bypass their biometric security systems. War Prime Dexter found himself in a situation he had never experienced in 6 centuries of conquest. His fleet was crippled, his ground forces were captured or neutralized, and he faced the very real possibility of defeat at the hands of a species he had dismissed as primitive. Standing in the ruins of his command center, watching his tactical displays flicker with system failures, he finally understood what his scouts had missed in their initial assessment of humanity. These weren't just another species to be conquered. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who had learned to thrive in conditions that would destroy other races. The final moment came when Jake Rivera, working with Elena, Vasquez's tactical team, managed to extend the electromagnetic pulse directly to the Zephyrian flagship. Dexter watched his remaining systems fail one by one, leaving him in darkness except for the emergency lighting. A voice came through his communication system, speaking in perfect Zephyrian. It was Captain Vasquez, broadcasting from the Indomitable. War Prime Dexter, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Fleet. Your fleet is disabled. Your ground forces are captured, and your invasion has failed. I'm offering you the same choice you gave the colonists: surrender or face the consequences. Dexter has 4 eyes focused on the communication panel, his mind struggling to process the reversal of fortune. This is impossible. No species has ever defeated a Zephyrian fleet. Eleanor's voice came back, calm and professional. War Prime, you made the same mistake that every bully makes. You assume that because we were smaller and weaker, we were also afraid. You forgot that the most dangerous opponent is the one who has nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The surrender negotiations took place in New Terra's Central Plaza, with representatives from both sides meeting under the twin suns of Kepler 442b. Dexter, now stripped of his ceremonial armor and accompanied by only 2 guards, stood before the assembled colonists. Sarah Chen faced him with quiet dignity, flanked by Marcus Thompson and Jake Rivera. Behind them stood 50,000 colonists who had refused to surrender their home, and above them orbited the Indomitable, its battle-scarred hull a testament to human determination. Your species has proven ... Formidable, Dexter nodded, his harmonious voice subdued. The Zephyrian Empire has never encountered such resistance from a technologically inferior species. Sarah stepped forward, every inch the diplomat despite the improvised armor she still wore. We're prime. We're not inferior. We're different. We don't conquer worlds because we need to prove our strength. We build homes because we need to prove our humanity. Jake Rivera, still young but aged by the experience of the last few days, spoke up. Your technology is impressive, but you used it to destroy. We took industrial equipment and planetary geology and turned them into tools of liberation. That's the difference between conquest and creation. Dexter's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed their words. What are your terms? Marcus Thompson, still carrying the rifle he had used to defend his home, answered. Simple. Your fleet leaves this system and never returns. You report to your empire that humanity is not to be underestimated. And you remember that some things in this galaxy can't be conquered, only earned. The Zephyrian commander looked around at the faces surrounding him. He saw farmers who had become warriors, children who had helped evacuate civilians, elderly colonists who had worked alongside teenagers to build defenses. He saw a species that had transformed desperation into determination, fear into fury, and hopelessness into an unshakable refusal to surrender. Agreed, he said finally. The Zephyrian Empire will remember New Terra. As the Zephyrian ships limped away from the system, Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching the planet that had become a symbol of human resilience. Her crew, battered but victorious, worked to repair the damage from their impossible battle. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came through the communication system. Captain Vasquez, we can't thank you enough for what you've done. Elena smiled, looking down at the blue-green world where 50,000 humans had refused to surrender their dreams. Dr. Chen, we didn't do anything that you didn't do first. You showed the galaxy that humans don't run from a fight when they're protecting their home. We just made sure the lesson was heard. Jake Rivera, now something of a hero among the colonists, worked to restore the colony's systems while planning improvements that would make New Terra even stronger. His electromagnetic pulse system had been refined and would be shared with other human colonies, ensuring that no settlement would face the same desperate odds alone. Marcus Thompson returned to his role as security chief, but with a new understanding of what that meant. He began training programs that would prepare every colonist to defend their home, not because they expected another attack, but because they had learned that freedom was something you had to be willing to fight for. Word of the victory at New Terra spread throughout the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. Other species, some who had submitted to Zephyrian rule for centuries, began to whisper about the humans who had faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. Rebellions began to spark in distant systems, inspired by the example of a small colony that had dared to stand against an empire. The Zephyrian Empire, for its part, found itself facing something it had never encountered before, the knowledge that they were not invincible. Other species began to resist their expansion, and the word human became synonymous with the kind of stubborn determination that could overcome any odds. But perhaps the most important change was on New Terra itself, the colony that had started as a peaceful settlement of farmers and researchers had become something more. They had become a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when pushed to its limits. They had proven that home wasn't just a place you lived, but a principle you were willing to die for. Years later, when children on New Terra learned about the day their parents had faced the Zephyrian Empire and refused to surrender, they would understand that they were part of something larger than themselves. They were part of a species that had looked at the vastness of space and decided it wasn't too big to explore, that had faced impossible odds and decided they weren't too great to overcome. They were human, and that meant they never gave up. Never. Stopped fighting and never forgot that sometimes the smallest light could illuminate the darkest corner of the galaxy. The colony that had refused to die had become a beacon for every human settlement among the stars. Proof that no matter how far from Earth they traveled, they carried with them the indomitable spirit that had lifted humanity from a single world. To the stars themselves, when all hope seemed gone, the humans had indeed fallen from the sky like thunder, reminding the galaxy that some forces in the universe couldn't be measured in ships or weapons or technology. Some forces could only be measured in the courage of people who refused to surrender their dreams to fear. Asterisk.